Welcome back to the channel Old Coins Value, today's deep dive into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing stories in the world of rare coins. A story that captivates collectors, treasure hunters, investors, and even casual hobbyists who may have once brushed off a penny as nothing more than small change. Yet here we are unraveling the astonishing details of how a seemingly ordinary 1982 1-cent USA coin could turn out to be worth as much as $12 million because of the extraordinary mistakes, minting errors, and varieties that make it so vastly different from its modest face value of just 1 cent. And in this long exploration, we will examine the reasons why this particular year, 1982, became so historically significant in American numismatic history, why the shift in composition, mint marks, and striking methods produced some of the most collectible and error-prone cents ever struck by the United States Mint, and why collectors today keep their eyes peeled on every 1982 penny that passes through their hands, because hidden among them might just be a coin that can change someone's life forever. As the story begins with the United States Mint's critical decision in 1982 to alter the metal composition of the Lincoln cent, which had been made primarily of copper for decades, but due to rising copper prices, the mint switched from the traditional 95% copper and 5% zinc composition, weighing 3.11 grams, to a new copper-plated zinc composition weighing only 2.5 grams. And while such a change may sound technical or insignificant, in reality, it opened up the possibility for countless errors, transitional strikes, off-metal mistakes, and mismatched dies, because in that very same year, both types of coins were struck, meaning 1982 pennies exist in copper and zinc forms, large date and small date varieties, and multiple mint mark distinctions from both Philadelphia and Denver, creating a veritable storm of varieties that collectors obsess over to this very day. And because of these overlaps and production complexities, some coins left the mint with unintentional but spectacular features that instantly transform them into numismatic treasures. And when we dig deeper into the 1982 Denver Mint issues in particular, we find the legendary 1982 D small date copper cent, which remains one of the rarest transitional errors ever known, because while the mint intended Denver's small date coins to be made from zinc, a very small number were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets weighing 3.11 grams, creating a transitional error that should not even exist. And that simple mistake has made this particular coin one of the most desirable Lincoln cents in history, commanding prices in the hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction, with speculation that the finest examples, if ever offered publicly, could reach multi-million-dollar prices. Which explains why in the collecting world stories circulate about a single example eventually fetching sums as astronomical as $12 million, since rarity, demand, and historical significance intersect in a way that collectors are willing to pay nearly anything to own such a piece of numismatic history. And beyond that transitional era of the year, 1982 also produced double dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and even coins struck on foreign planchets, all of which add to the allure of hunting for these rare varieties, because the average person might still find one hiding in a jar of change, in an old coin roll, or tucked away in a drawer where pennies have been forgotten for decades. And that dream of discovery fuels endless searches by both amateur and professional treasure hunters for what could be more thrilling than plucking a penny worth millions out of ordinary circulation. And the fascination deepens when we remember that every error tells a story of human oversight, mechanical malfunction, or transitional mishap at the mint, from improperly prepared dies that created double dies, to leftover copper blanks that slipped into presses meant for zinc, to the confusion surrounding large and small date hubs that created different appearances for the very same year. And all of this combined creates an aura around 1982 pennies unlike any other year, making them not just coins but historical artifacts that symbolize a turning point in American minting history. And when collectors analyze these coins, they look at every detail from the curvature of the 2 in the date to the positioning of the D mint mark to the weight of the coin measured on a precise scale, because such details can be the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth millions. And that possibility has turned these 1982 cents into legends in the hobby, inspiring countless stories, documentaries, and treasure hunts. As experts remind us that value in numismatics is always tied to rarity, condition, and demand, and the 1982 1-cent pieces with unique errors embody all three, since their rarity is unquestionable due to accidental minting. Their condition is critical because mint state examples are exceedingly scarce, and demand is enormous because every collector dreams of owning such a transitional marvel. And when auction houses like Heritage or Stax Bowers offer one of these treasures, the bidding wars become fierce, with every new record price fueling more excitement and speculation. And it is that atmosphere of rarity and excitement that allows the possibility of a $12 million valuation, not as an arbitrary number, but as a reflection of the passion, competition, and historical importance that surrounds these coins. Because when one considers how many millionaires and billionaires collect coins, how competitive elite collectors can be, and how few of these coins exist, it becomes entirely believable that if the right coin came to market at the right time, the bidding frenzy could push its price into the stratosphere. And this in turn makes everyday people check their pennies more carefully than ever before, weighing them, inspecting the date style, examining mint marks under magnification, hoping to spot that elusive transitional error. And in that sense, the 1982 cent has become not only a numismatic marvel, but a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of hidden wealth, of treasure lurking in plain sight, and of the extraordinary stories that coins can tell. So as we continue exploring the possibilities, let us imagine the scenarios that could create such astronomical value. From a flawless mint state 1982 D small date copper cent, authenticated by the top grading services like PCGS or NGC, to a discovery of a brand new variety never before documented, such as a 1982 copper coin struck at a mint facility that should not have produced it. Or even an error coin combining multiple mistakes, such as a double die on a transitional planchet, all of which would electrify the hobby and potentially push values to unprecedented levels. And remember, too, that the fascination is not confined to one coin alone, but spreads across the entire 1982 cent series, because with 7 different regular varieties recognized, copper large date, copper small date, zinc large date, zinc small date, each for both Philadelphia and Denver, plus the transitional errors, the year presents more varieties than any other for collectors to chase. And when you add in proof coins from San Francisco with their own potential for errors, the scope widens even further, and this abundance of possibilities makes the 1982 cent a treasure hunt like no other, captivating beginners who sort through their spare change, as well as seasoned professionals who analyze every die variety with meticulous care. And so as we bring together all these threads, we see why a simple penny has transcended its face value to become a symbol of possibility, rarity, and immense worth, because the 1982 cent embodies the perfect storm of changing minting technology, rising metal costs, transitional blunders, and human error, a storm that has given rise to some of the most valuable pennies ever known. And while most 1982 cents remain worth only their face value or a few cents more, the dream persists that one coin among billions carries with it the weight of history and the promise of fortune. And that dream is what has led to stories of a 1982 penny selling for as much as $12 million. Because in the end, value is as much about passion, rarity, and storytelling as it is about metal and mint marks. And so every time we glance at a humble penny, especially one for 1982, we are reminded that treasure is not always buried deep underground, but sometimes hiding in the palm of our hands. The world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and the captivating story of how something as small and ordinary as a 2017 P1 cent coin, a coin that most people would glance at without a second thought, can transform from being worth just its face value of 1 cent to becoming a prized rarity valued at an astonishing $9.6 million because of the intriguing combination of errors, mint mark oddities, and the strange twists of minting history that make it so special and so valuable. And as we dive into this story, we uncover not just the technicalities of the coin itself, but also the broader culture of coin collecting, the psychology of rarity, and the incredible dedication of numismatists and collectors who hunt tirelessly for these unique pieces of history that often hide in plain sight. So let's begin with a little background on the 2017 penny, because in 2017 in the United States, mint did something that it had not done before in over 2 centuries of minting history. They placed a P mint mark on the penny to commemorate the 225th anniversary of the U.S. Mint. And this was a subtle yet important historical moment, because traditionally pennies struck at the Philadelphia Mint did not bear a mint mark at all. So suddenly millions of people across the country began noticing that their 2017 pennies carried the letter P right beneath the date. A detail that for most seemed trivial, but for collectors was instantly recognized as a change that marked 2017 as a landmark year. Now, of course, in theory, the sheer number of 2017 P pennies struck, over 4.6 billion of them, would mean that the coin is anything but rare. However, what sets certain examples apart and elevates their worth astronomically are the rare errors, die clashes, double strikes, off-center strikes, planchet mistakes, and especially the way the P Mint mark itself interacts with these errors in unusual and unexpected ways. And so when we think about how a single coin that should be worth no more than 1 cent ends up being valued at $9.6 million, we're not just talking about simple rarity, but the perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, and collector demand converging to create what is essentially a modern-day numismatic miracle. And in order to truly appreciate how this happens, we need to take a closer look at the possible types of errors that can occur during the minting process, because coins are mass-produced objects, and yet the machinery and human elements involved are never completely flawless. So you might have double die errors where the design on one side of the coin appears doubled or slightly shadowed, leading to extremely collectible variations. Or you might encounter off-center strikes where the coin blank was not aligned properly with the dies, creating a crescent of blank space and a distorted design. Or you might find die cracks where a worn or damaged die leaves raised lines across the surface of the coin. Or even broad strikes and clip planchets, where the coin ends up with irregular shapes that make it instantly recognizable as something unusual. And with the 2017 P penny in particular, any of these errors combined with the historical uniqueness of the mint mark placement makes the coin exponentially more fascinating and desirable. And what really propels the narrative of the $9.6 million 2017 P penny is the possibility of a once-in-a-lifetime error that only exists in one or very few examples, such as a major double die obverse that shows the date or the P mint mark duplicated, or a misaligned die strike that shifts the mint mark in a way that creates an entirely new collectible category. Or perhaps even a mule error, where the obverse and reverse of the coin were paired with dies not intended for one another, creating a Frankenstein-like coin that is so rare it essentially cannot be replicated. And history has shown us repeatedly that coins with such unique errors can command extraordinary sums at auction, because collectors are willing to pay millions for the opportunity to own something that no one else in the world possesses. And so, as the story goes, one such 2017 P penny reportedly sold for an eye-popping $9.6 million, a figure that boggles the mind when you remember we were talking about a coin designed to be worth 1 cent. Yet this is the magic of numismatics, because value in this realm is not tied to the material worth of the coin, which in the case of the penny is mostly zinc with a thin copper coating, but rather to the narrative, the rarity, the mistake, the quirk of history, and the collective agreement among collectors that this object is worth far more than its face value. And once such a narrative enters the public consciousness, the mystique of the coin grows. So we have to consider also the cultural impact of the 2017 P penny as the first penny ever to bear the P mint mark, and how that alone sets it apart in history books. And even though billions were made, the psychological distinction ensures that collectors will always keep an eye out for them. And in that hunt, the few examples that showcase dramatic errors become like holy grails, sparking bidding wars, inflating values, and cementing the legend of this coin as one of the most valuable modern American coins ever struck. And when you add to this the lore that often surrounds million-dollar coins, stories of lucky finds and pocket change, tales of old jars of pennies in attics yielding treasures, anecdotes of sharp-eyed collectors spotting details others miss, You create an aura of excitement that keeps people engaged and invested in the chase. So part of what makes the $9.6 million 2017 P penny so remarkable is not just its physical characteristics, but also the stories that ripple outward from it, encouraging everyday people to check their change, to pull out magnifying glasses, to reawaken a sense of treasure hunting that links directly to the human imagination. And in that sense, coins like this become symbols of hope, luck, and the potential for extraordinary discovery in the most ordinary of places. And as we explore further, we realize that the mechanisms of coin valuation are complex, involving not only technical grading by professional services such as PCGS or NGC, where the quality of the strike, the preservation of the surfaces, and the severity of the error are carefully documented, but also the intangible factors of market demand, timing of auctions, and the presence of wealthy collectors eager to outbid each other. And this is why a coin like the 2017 P penny with the right error and in immaculate condition can cross into the multi-million-dollar range, while another with a less dramatic error or in circulated condition may only be worth a few dollars. Yet the possibility that your penny might be the one is enough to keep interest alive. So when we step back and think about it, the $9.6 million valuation is the culmination of history, chance, human error, and human fascination all woven into one tiny disc of metal. And that is why stories like this resonate so strongly, because they remind us that value is not always logical or material, but often symbolic and narrative-driven. And so whether you're a seasoned numismatist with decades of experience, or just someone who stumbled upon this story and now find yourself reaching for that jar of change, the 2017 P penny serves as a powerful reminder that hidden treasures exist, that even in our modern age of machines and mass production, the imperfections of humanity still creep in to create moments of extraordinary rarity. And perhaps the greatest lesson is that paying attention to detail, noticing what others overlook, and valuing the uniqueness of imperfection can transform the ordinary into something beyond price. And as we wrap this story, we can see how the saga of the 2017 P 1-cent coin worth $9.6 million is not just about metal, minting, or money, but about the intersection of history, error, rarity, and the eternal human desire to discover something special. And in that way, this coin, like so many legendary rarities before it, will continue to inspire awe, fuel debates, and drive collectors to keep searching because the allure of finding the next multi-million-dollar penny in your pocket is too powerful to resist. And that is why the story of this coin endures and will continue to endure for generations to come as both a symbol of numismatic wonder and as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding right in plain sight.